Good morning, everybody. This is Sharmila on this side, and we are here to today. We are gathering together to understand how to develop a homeschooling curriculum. Um, to be very honest, per se, we don't follow a curriculum at home. We we are just guided by what my children want to learn, and most often they find their own way and own path to learning. However, since I have been a facilitator for over 8 to 9 years, and I have been into the field of designing curriculums and training teachers around it, I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to come and talk about how to design a homeschooling curriculum. So, welcome everybody, and y'all can post your questions or your feedback on in the comment section, and I can view them. I'm using StreamYard as a platform, and I can see your comments, and I will answer your questions as they come. The Before we begin, I would also like to share that. At A homeschooling curriculum is very different from a schooling curriculum. And the main difference is that a schooling curriculum is a standardized program created to be delivered for, say, about 30, 40 children at the same time. And the same thing continues for a period of 5, 6, 7 years until it is reviewed and changes are made. Unless the school is progressive minded and aims at reviewing it on a timely basis, maybe every year or every 6 months, and sees what is working or not working. Um, so let's let's begin. Let's not waste too much time. I want to end this within an hour, and if need be, we'll have another session, and maybe even think of a series of sessions, because designing a curriculum is, I will not be able to give you everything that I know about designing curriculums in one session. So, without wasting any time, let's start thinking about what is a curriculum. If any one of you all have thoughts about what a curriculum is, please start typing. I can see your comments, and I will take it, use your inputs too, so that our session is more interactive. So, I would like everyone to share about what, according to them, is a curriculum. I'm going to wait for a couple of minutes. If I don't see any responses, then I have no choice. I'll just take it on. Okay. So we have one comment coming in, uh, where the user says that they have no idea about what curriculum to follow. I do understand, and I can also see that your goal is very temporary. You all uh, you would want to put your child back into school. So fair enough, not a problem. But you are looking at how to engage the child while the child is at home. Okay, so there's another comment which says that they want to know what and how, what is the curriculum and how I want my child to learn. Okay, another user saying it is a process. Definitely, it is a process, and it is not something that is an end product. It is a journey. It is what you do in a course of time, in the course of time. So that's a very uh, uh, that's a very great point to make. uh, so if no one else has any points to make, I would like to share something. So when I was a novice, that was a long, long ago. I was a student. I was a student in a master's program, master's in social work, and we were given a task to create a kindergarten curriculum for the juvenile children. Okay, the juveniles and those children who lived in something called an observation home. So at that time, I immediately jumped and we started putting down, a list of topics that the children should know about. And we started listing down activities that we should do and what songs we should sing and what games we should play, what worksheets should be created, what toys should be used, what manipulatives should be used. However, it was only when I was part of an education program. I did my second master's, not complete. I did one semester. I couldn't complete the other because I was pregnant. So in that, I got to learn that a curriculum is a lot more than just creating activities and setting down the topics that you want to teach. And instinctively, while I was teaching at a school, I was doing all that. I was involved in preparing an annual plan and a curriculum with a group of teachers. We followed a very progressive learning program, and so I put a whole lot of these things together. And here, this is what I have come up with: is that curriculum is a lot more than just putting down a syllabus and listing down activities and things that you want to teach. So it is not only about content and activities. There's a lot more that it gets behind. And when you think about it, that's when you start asking the questions. Why do you want to design a curriculum? Why do you want your child to learn? Why do you want to be part of your child's learning? So, the first and foremost element of a curriculum is the why part, which features in your pedagogy, your belief system, the values that you uphold, and having a clear understanding of this is the basis or is the foundation to design a curriculum that actually works for your child. And if we remember, what is why do we choose to homeschool, right? We choose to homeschool because one, we are not very happy with the schooling program, because schooling program is standardized. We want something that is learner specific, and the child, it moves at the pace of the child. We want something that is not too competitive but yet focuses on excellence, where the child is honing his skills or knowledge or his ability to apply what he has learned. So we are striving towards excellence and not towards competition and showing that I am better than this one and I get more marks than this one, than the other children. So keeping in mind, these few points, that we all choose to homeschool, we need to think about designing a curriculum with these as our basic elements. Uh, each each individual, each parent can, actually start by listing down these beliefs and these values that they want to uphold and the reasons why they have chosen to homeschool their child. Once that is laid out, then the next step becomes very easy. So, I at this point I would also like to say that homeschooling curriculum is very individualistic and unique to a particular child. What we are saying is that since it may be standardized to a certain extent, but we believe that all children are different. My child is different, and I'm designing something for my child. So, uh, it may not necessarily work for another child, because all children are different. Okay. So before I move on, there are a few points that have come up from our viewers. So I'm going to just go through them so that I see whether we are on the same page. Yes, uh, it is a process to make the child understand all concepts. Let's get into this point a little more, much a little later, because I would question what do we mean when we say I make a child understand concepts. So the second point that's come, how do we make the child to be self motivated to do activities or learning themselves? So this is a very 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 important point that you've made, very valid. How do we keep our children motivated to do activities that we have planned as parents, or if they are self learning, how do they keep at what they are doing? So where does the motivation come from? We will cover this uh, either in this session or in the next few sessions. uh, will there be any problem in continuing with the mainstream school after pandemic gets over? I'm really sorry I cannot answer this question in this session, because this session focuses on developing a homeschooling curriculum. However, you can ask this question on our Homeschooling India page and see what responses you get, because our members would be willing to help you get insights to this question. Uh, the other point that's come is, my child is on autism spectrum. He won't fit into mainstream. Also, mainstream school might kill his talents. I feel I can teach him better. Probably yes. This Saturday, we are going to be having a session with a mom who has who has an autistic child, a child with autism. I I should use the correct words and not call the child autistic, but child with the condition and named autism. And she is going to be here, and she's going to share her experience and the extensive research that she's done in this area as a homeschooling mom, and how she has created a learning along with her child. So just be patient. Today we are going to give a general understanding towards homeschooling, towards designing a homeschooling curriculum. Okay, another question. My child does not like to follow a disciplined routine. I understand. And yes, some part of this will be covered with our sessions. I'm not sure whether it will get covered in this session because it's only for an hour, but we will have a series of sessions, and in one of them, we will look at these points. Some elements might get covered here. Okay. Uh, how do we handle curriculum when it comes to children of same age but different in development styles cycles? Yeah, great. This is another relevant question. We hope to answer this one in the course of time. If we choose screen time for our curriculum, then what can we include for how much time? Okay. So, even for this question, there are no ready made answers. So, why? And we will now start looking into how to design a curriculum, and more things will get, revealed. For now, I would, I would like it if all of us go into the detective mode, or the mode where an inquiry mode, where you are trying to inquire and get as much as you can, so that you can create a robust curriculum for your child. And remember, I remember watching a lot of murder mysteries. In fact, I have been watching a lot of them right now during this pandemic. And I see one thing, in the uh, one behavior pattern among all these investigators and detectives. One is they are only solution oriented. They do not let the problem impact them, and they do not let a problem lower their motivation, lower their focus. And that is something what I would like to share with you all, that while you're designing your curriculum and while you all are attending this session, let's become those investigators and detectives and creators, because we are going to create our own curriculum. It will take time. It doesn't happen, with the snap of the fingers. We are not Thanos, like my children say. Um, so let so I'm going to begin. I'm going to start sharing a screen. I'm adding it to the stream, and um, so so now if you look at the screen, okay, so first and foremost, we are looking at what is a curriculum. So a curriculum, as I said earlier, it does not only include the syllabus in terms of what is to be learned or what is to be taught, but it starts with your beliefs and values as to why, the entire why part of it. um, uh, I made an error in making my slide. Then it is about what you want to teach. Then it is about how you want to do it. What are the different ways in which we can implement a curriculum? How do we create a schedule? That is, what do we teach when? How do we decide on that? And two more important aspects are: for whom are we creating this curriculum, and who is going to, by whom, so who is going to deliver this curriculum. Okay, the point that I missed in the slide, which probably I overlooked it, was creating the environment and the surroundings is also part of the curriculum. So we are going to be looking at all these aspects when we design a curriculum, and each of these is important. And don't hold anyone as, this is slightly less important, or I don't need to focus on this. We need to focus on every part of it if we want to design a good curriculum. So let's start with beliefs and values. So, excuse me, sorry, I'll just drink some water. So when we look at beliefs and values, you this is, like I said in my introduction, this is what you begin with. What are your beliefs about how does a child learn? How does my child learn? What are the basic developmental milestones? That is, what does my child learn, at what my child has learned at what age or at what time? uh, what are your beliefs around teaching or facilitation? How do you know? What are your beliefs around how do you know whether a child is learning or not? How do you know learning is taking place? What is the role of environment in this learning? So once you lay down these your beliefs, and believe me, each individual family unit will have different beliefs, will have different value sets, and which is okay. We celebrate that as homeschoolers, because if we wanted something standardized, probably we would have just opted for schools, because schools are already offering standardized programs, and a bit more flexible programs are being offered by progressive minded schools or the alternate schools. However, we have chosen homeschooling, which I think one of the core beliefs of homeschooling is that every child is unique and they learn in their own way. So when you look at so that's where I'm stating my first beliefs, that how a child learns, the child learns. So my beliefs, I'm just sharing some of my beliefs so that you all understand. One is, a child learns when they are ready. My second belief is every child is unique, so a standardized program does not work. Um, Thirdly, every child learns at their own pace. Child is naturally curious and hence puts in a lot of efforts to make meaning of the world around them. And my uh, next and most important belief is that every child has the resources within themselves to make things work for them. So if they want answers to something and they're highly curious about it, they will find their ways to learn it. And that's where I come to my beliefs around teaching and facilitation. uh, Most often, I believe that my children learn by themselves, which is why we are heavily into self learning. And my role then becomes more of a facilitator. And my beliefs around facilitation are that one, most importantly, make facilitate the environment, creation of the environment which is conducive for my child's learning. Especially if my child is curious about, say for example, my daughter is used to be curious about insects. She wanted to make pet. She wanted insects as pets, ants and spiders and lizards. And lizard is not an insect, sorry, but she wanted all these creatures that she saw around her to become her pets. And her interest in this topic went so deep that she kept asking a lot of questions. Why does a spider have 8 legs? Does it mean that it won't walk with 6 legs? Will it die if it has less legs? Then, what if a wing of a fly is broken? Why do we kill mosquitoes? She had a whole lot of these questions that came into her mind. And my role then became to, you know, provide her with resources. So we had plenty of books around insects. We brought in plenty of toys, insect toys, these animal toys and all that. So we brought them. Where during our mother and daughter time, uh, we made insects, and we made insects with various things, scrap paper, aluminium foil. Um, we did a lot of those things, and not and they never looked perfect the way are always shown on in those DIY videos, but we used our own creativity to do all that. We had storybooks also, as well as encyclopedias and information books on that topic. So my role became more of a facilitator, where I was just creating an environment where she could self learn. And I was available for her whenever she had questions, because she's at a tender age of 5.5, 6, when she was curious about this. I had to read out to her, and I had to show her books, show her drawings, draw along with her, and that was my role. So my beliefs about my role as a facilitator came from my beliefs of what I believed is how a child learns. So it was more about, I have to guide her towards self learning. I have to make her believe and help her believe that she can find her own answers. And yeah, so uh, this was so you need to put down and you need to think about what are your beliefs about facilitation or teaching, and what is the role that you are going to play. That will come to later, but your beliefs about teaching and facilitation will decide on what role would you play. At this juncture, I would also like to once again emphasize that there are no right or wrong ways. One, some months ago, a friend kind of asked me, so if we are unschooling or homeschooling, or we are, if my child is a self learner, shouldn't I do what I'm good at with my child? And this dear friend was amazing with games, activities. She was an amazing artist. Uh, and she was confused. She wanted to know whether I do these things with my child. Do I teach him or do I don't? And I told her, it's what makes you comfortable. If you are comfortable having specific sessions with your child, doing where you're teaching him something, it's fine, because you're made that way. If you design a game and tell your child that let's play this is going to help you in something, it's great, because that's the connection you're having with your child, and which is enabling him to learn, which is motivating him to learn. So, once again, I have to emphasize here that it is not wrong to teach, it is not wrong to choose facilitation as a way of implementing a curriculum, but you need to be aware of what your beliefs are around this. Then how do you know learning is taking place? There are so many times this question comes up, how do we assess that our child is learning? How do we assess that my child knows? And so I uh, most often ask them, how do you think you would know that a child knows? So, no, then, there are many parents who also say we need to have exams, we need to have assessments. I said, okay, if your child is enjoying that, that's the best thing to do. Like, yeah, there are times when my sons, used to come and tell me, Mama, create worksheets for us. We want to solve worksheets. Or even Tara, my daughter, comes and tells me, Mama, print out this worksheet for me. I want to do it to show you that I can do this. So there are different ways of knowing how learning takes place. Assessments through worksheets is one way. The other way is through application. Now, what are our beliefs around this? Now, if you see what I'm talking, what I'm sharing with you all, everything that I plan and decide takes me back to how my child is learning. In fact, that is what we are going to go to with the next slide. And uh, okay, okay, I'm going to come back to this slide. I'm going to okay. Okay. So before I talk about that, I'm going to also look at the syllabus aspect of uh, learning. So which which says about what should a child learn. And this is something that we have seen being asked, what curriculum do I follow, what should I teach my child, what topics do I teach? So, the first and foremost point that I want to make over here is the grade specific curriculum. Let me demystify it. So when I became a teacher and I had a group of children from the age group of 5 to 9 in my class, and I had a lot of parents who wanted to know, what am I teaching them? How they had questions like, how can a 9-year-old sit with a 5-year-old, and how is learning happening, and aren't they of different grades? So I went into a research. I took books of NCRT, then some private publications which have books of grade 1 to grade 4. I looked at the CBSE curriculum, the NCRT books too. I looked at a whole lot of these textbooks and I laid them in front of me, and I went through the contents of grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. And what I saw was, say, suppose if the topic in grade 1 is sun and stars, then the topic in grade 2 will be sun as a solar system and planets. Then the topic in grade 3 would add in a little more, say the Milky Way, the galaxy, and probably the asteroids, meteorites. And then another year they would also add on the artificial satellites and people who went on space and all. So what I've realized was the concepts are the same, but they just add on a little extra in each of the years. And my experience with my children and in those days, and also with my own children, was that when you are interested in a concept, like my daughter was interested in planets and the solar system. I know that my group was asked me this question. This was the first question they asked me when we started this theme, on our universe. They asked me, how did Earth form, ma'am? Before you get into all that, you need to help us understand how did Earth form. And then they took that with, how did all the planets come into being? How was the sun formed? So we spent almost a month, looking at different kinds of videos. We used to have a class once a week on uh, this topic. So we went into looking at videos. Went into calling. We called some scientists for a session. We read books. We did worksheets. We did craft. We did a whole lot of things around the topic. Also because there's something called multiple intelligence learner. So every child has a different way of learning. So I had inculcated all different kinds of learning in what I did. So what you get is like, when don't focus that my child is in grade 1 so should learn only this. We are limiting ourselves, because while a child sees like this, we are trying to tell him, no, just do so much. So what should a child learn? Whether you want to follow grade specific curriculum which is already created and is standardized, or whether you just want to make a list of the topics that are covered in that age group. So say, in that level, I should say, not age group, say primary level has a list of these 10 topics, and these 10 topics is what I am going to do slowly and steadily with my child. So things become very easy to design. The second most important aspect is, once while you are preparing yourself in terms of what the syllabus should be, do take into consideration, what does my child want to know and make meaning of? What is my child interested in? What is it that is catching my child's attention at this point of time? Because children, they're like butterflies, especially during their younger ages. They get curious about something. Once that curiosity is satisfied, they move on to something else, and it happens in a very natural way, which is why I say that children are natural learners. So if you are that kind of a parent, you can just flow with the child and see, and have at the background all these topics that are covered in that particular age bracket. So middle school similarly will have similar topics that are covered. And if you look at social studies, science, together, and you make a list of those topics, you will see that once again, fifth, sixth, seventh is a gradual progression, and eighth grade is a revision of everything that you do in fifth, sixth, seventh. It is considered as a preparation. You're preparing the children for the rigor of ninth and 10th. And once again, ninth and 10th has usually the same curriculum which is followed, the same textbooks, especially IGCSE and all. The same, there's one textbook which starts in ninth grade, and you finish it by the time you are in you have completed half of your 10th grade, and then you prepare for your exams and you give the exams. So, very important to understand this for your child. And then, we are going to go to how a bit later. So I know I am intermingling many different things, many different aspects of curriculum design within one point, which also, because it's nothing linear, or vertical, that you do this then you go to this. So there's no cause and effect kind of a thing over here. It's best to create a mind map maybe when you're designing a curriculum, because one thing might lead to another, to another, to another. And it's never that, you learn this first, only then you can learn this, only then you can learn this. It depends. It depends on each and every child. So now, what so you also keep in mind what these standard learning goals or expectations are. So, if you look at any of these textbooks that you buy for CBSE, ICSE, they have something. There are two sheets called learning outcomes, which are there in each of the textbooks. You don't need to read everything. You can just read those learning outcomes, because those just reading those learning outcomes will give you many cues on what you need to do with your child. Okay, now I do not demean these learning outcomes, because these learning outcomes are very well researched by educators and by people who have really been into education for a long number of years, and through their experience, through their research, they have created these learning outcomes. So I do not demean them. You definitely need to, keep them in mind when you are designing your curriculum. And finally, you need to also ask yourself as a parent, what are my expectations from my child? What is it that I want from my child? So when I look at my children and their self learning, for me, my needs are very simple. My expectations are very simple. I want my children to be able to read, write. I want my children to have basic math skills where they can operate independently. So, tomorrow, if they have to handle their bank accounts, or if they have to do money transactions, or if they need to measure something, and they need to, suppose if they are designing something and they need those numbers and they need to understand patterns, they should be able to do it. So reading, writing, arithmetic, basic expectations, and a sense of the world around them. And when you look at the world around them, everything is included: your social studies, your science, your environmental studies. So, everything is included. So, I am super aware of my expectations when though I haven't designed my curriculum, but I am very much aware that yes, I want my children to progress here in this area. I'm completely aware of those. Um, so we'll move on to the next. Are there any questions at this point of time that anyone wants to ask around these two aspects that we have covered? Which one is our beliefs and values that help us that guide us to create a curriculum, and pointers around what syllabus and what should we teach our child, or what should we cover in the learning program that we create for our child. So, if there are any questions around it, please list down. Uh, uh, I will take them one by one, and if there are no questions, I'll just move on. My basic advice to all of y'all is, while I'm sharing, if a question comes to your mind, just type it out, because that I can take it immediately. Okay. So, okay, I don't see any questions coming. We are already done with almost 40 minutes. I will cover one more aspect, which is about method. How do I implement what is planned? Now, this again, how do I implement what is planned? It will take away majority of your energy. Okay, and if you have thought about your beliefs and you have thought carefully about what that is the syllabus that you want to cover with your child, then how do I implement it becomes much easier. So, how do I implement it? And this is also an aspect where one needs to understand certain child development theories and learning theories, because that helps us know how do we plan what is to be implemented. So if it is, if these are if your child is below 10 years of age, in fact, not only for, in my belief, whether he's 10 years or whether he's older, sensory learning is very important. Sensory learning, what do I mean by sensory learning? Learning where you're using all your senses. Okay, so where you're using the sense of touch, the sense of sight, the sense of smell, taste, um, uh, listening, hearing, everything is crucial for the child. And if any part becomes too heavy, the child might get overwhelmed. So let me give you an example for this. Say, suppose if you, one of your topics is around math, and math is something that most parents are scared about, and often they farm it out to a tutor, which is also fine. Suppose if it's math and your child is in the primary age group. Now, how do you bring sensory learning? You need to remember that children, to in order to make meaning of what is happening around them, they need to use all these senses. So if you just tell a child 5 plus 4 is 9, or 3 plus 2 is 5, and while you're introducing in addition to the child might just get bored, because there are only two senses that are being used. Two, no, sorry, three: sense of sight, sense of hearing, and touch, because writing. But they are not experiencing it. They are not seeing an example of how or why that happens, right? They're only seeing numbers. But in case of numbers, you put objects, you put three, say three flowers and two flowers, and then you say, now how much? It becomes much easier for them to learn and understand and make meaning of that concept. So which is where the second part comes, where you're using your head, heart, and hands. So you're using your head because there's a lot of cognitive processing that's happening inside your mind. And that cognitive processing happens when you are in the right frame of mind, your heart is in what you are learning, and you are creating and doing things by yourself, or you are exploring and you're doing exploring it on your own, right? So I might do a demo and show how 3 plus 2 is 5, or I might give the child various objects and show him how 3, and let him explore how 3 plus 2 is 5. Now I'm just using 3 plus 2 as a symbolic example, but this can be put across to all the concepts that the child wants to learn, whether it is English, whether it is maths, whether it is science, whether it is social studies, everything. If the head, heart, and hands, all three are in it, in that learning, the learning is amazing. Now, is the learning is it self-learning or teacher directed? So, do you as a parent come planned with, let's do this experiment today, or the child during his questioning says, Mama, I want to know what happens to, where does water go when it starts boiling, or why does the water reduce in the vessel? And then you say that, you know what, let's do it and see. Let's do some experiments around it and see. Now, both ways work, the parent might have a topic in mind and might come with an experiment and say that, you know what, today we are going to see what happens to water when it starts boiling. And you do an experiment and you show, you put a lid on it and you see the steam getting collected, and you change the environment of the space so that you can see the vaporized water, so you know the steam. So you can do n number of things, so both work. And now you need to understand how your child is interested in learning to decide on whether you want to keep that activity teacher directed, that is parent directed over here, or do you want it to be more of a self learning. So in my place, I have had Tara, you know, when you turn on the geyser and have hot water coming, you immediately see the steam. She has answered all these questions for herself while taking a bath, while watching me make tea, and then the conversations that we have around what we are observing helps her learn. That is our style. However, it can be different. It can be that the topic for that you guys have chosen with your child is water and various states of water, and then you all do a whole lot of these experiments to show the child and help the child experience and learn through sensory as well as head, heart, and hands approach. Then the next important thing one needs to keep in mind is multiple intelligences. Now, what do we mean by multiple intelligences? Is that each child has a different way to learn. Okay. There might be some kinesthetic learners, children who are can't sit still in one place and want movement in their life all the time. And these are also children who get labeled as ADHDs, you know, children with attention deficit and hyperactive disorder. So, but no, it's a fact. Many children hate sitting in one place. Secondly, there could be children who learn through visuals, where they like to see, they like to observe, you know. Then there are children who would like to create. There are some children who like to read and learn. There are some children who like to write and learn. There are different, every child is different. All these different intelligences are part of every child. However, there will be one or two dominant ones. And as a parent, if we observe and identify what is dominant in that child, then we can design our curriculum accordingly. And we can design how, you know, to implement what is to be taught accordingly. Then there are then lastly, there are choices of so many different approaches. You can adopt and adapt these approaches. So if you all have been listening to our Wednesday lives, we've had Surabhi Thakur talking about the Montessori way and how she has brought in the Montessori way in her life. She has adapted it. She has brought in her own creativity to implement Montessori approach with her child, which is beautiful because she knows, she has observed how her child learns and she is adopting an approach with her. Similarly, we've had Lily talking about the Glenn Doman approach of how she introduced alphabets and words, and so that also I think Lily has customized it. She has because you know she has devised timings about of when her child would focus on learning. So she's flashed those cards in front of them during their when they are sitting on their potty or they are doing some or just when they or at different timings. And she has observed her children. She knows when her child would learn the most, and she has found that this time I can work with my child, and that's when she has implemented it. Then there are other approaches. We are soon going to have another member from our group talking about the Waldorf approach. So you can, and she also will give you tips on how to integrate it in your homeschooling curriculum. Then there's something called integrated learning, where you decide a particular topic or a concept or a theme that you want to learn with your child, and what happens is that you integrate maths, you integrate English, you integrate geography, you integrate everything with that particular theme, and it's easy. It's really easy. So if I used to do a lot of integrated learning, and to give you an example, when we were learning about plant life, so I had stories, poems, uh, around. So all my comprehension passages would be around plant life. Our drama, that we used to do a lot of theater in class, because I had 2 3 children who loved theater, so they learned through learning dialogues and uh, showcasing that in a theatrical way. So we did a lot of drama, and I used to bring in stories, and we used to enact stories on how the seed turns into a plant, and how the fruit is formed, and what happens to the fruit. And so we used to do a lot of these different things, where I used to bring in all these multiple intelligences. There were children who couldn't sit in one place, so we used to have sessions where we actually went to farms, we went to the mountains, and we went for nature walks to learn more about how plants grow and how plants live. So then there were information books for those who like to read and see pictures. There were videos brought in. So I tried to use an integrated approach, and I used multiple intelligences. I taught maths through the plants thing. So, okay, how tall is the plant now? Which plant is tall? Which plant is shorter? I must say, I taught the primary level children, so the concepts are much easier to teach. But then I say that if the foundation of children is very strong in the primary years, children are ready for self learning in middle school, and then the parents' role becomes very less, because the child knows how to learn and can make sense very easily. And that's where I come to that query that was asked. Our job is to make them understand concepts. Our job isn't to make them understand concepts, but our job probably is to facilitate an environment where the children can make sense of these concepts. So the onus is on the child to make sense. How much ever you try to make somebody understand, the child, unless it makes sense to the child, it it is of no use. And once again, this is my belief. You might believe something else. You might feel that if I tell him that leaves are green, then the child, I'm making him understand that the color of leaves are green. However, it might not make sense to the child, because the child has seen purple leaves, the child has seen orange leaves, yellow leaves, different shades of colors in of green colors in the leaves. So the child might just say, okay, I'm learning it because you're telling me, but it's not making sense to me. This is a very crude example that I have given, because one of my friends shared that in the preschool that her child went to, her son colored a mango pink in color, and the teacher put a red cross on that page, and that demotivated the child completely. He was just a 4.5-year-old boy, and he felt terrible. And then he came home, and his mama asked him, what happened? Why are you feeling so low? And he told his mama, but I have seen pink color on a mango. So now this friend of mine has a house in Ratnagiri, where you see they have mango orchards all around them. The child has seen the different shades of mangoes, and he has seen a reddish pink colored mango. So some parts of it, but yes, so it is very wrong if we kind of try to make them understand concepts, and not. I would rather say, let's get into an inquiry mode, and see what the child senses of a particular concept. So, but then that is my belief, not anybody else's. And yeah, so these are certain tips and pointers around how do I implement what is planned. It's already 55 minutes have crossed, and we still have 3 4 important points to cover. We have something around role of a parent, role of the teacher, role of the child, and how do we do assessments. I have given snippets of all that in during my introduction to this topic. However, I would say that I could take another session if everybody has found this session to be helpful and interesting. I can take another session, and we can we can, work with it. The other option that I give to parents, to all of you parents, is that we could do a workshop style curriculum development where you actually, it's not just a dial, just me talking, but we all together share our points, share, think, reflect about our children, about ourselves, and we create a unique curriculum for our children. So both these options are possible, and we can work towards it. I would prefer to have around just about 5 6 maximum 8 people in a workshop method, because then we can, give a lot of personal attention, and we can have a lot more discussions and richer discussions around it. So on that note, I'll just take one question that has been asked. From what age should we try to design a curriculum? That's, I would say, like, this is again my opinion. You don't need to follow this or agree with what I'm saying. I believe that homeschooling begins when a child is ready at the school going age. The school going age has been determined by our government, and it is 6 years old. That is when the child enters grade 1. Prior to that is preschool. Prior to that, it is an age, where you just let the child be, and let the child and do a lot of things with the child, definitely keeping in mind their their multiple intelligences and what is dominant in them and all. But you do a multiple things and just enjoy being that parent, in the life of your child. Connect with the child, just be that friend whom the child can come to whenever he has questions, or she wants to experiment something, or she wants to do something. Prior to that, I think, just chill, enjoy. These times are not going to come back again, because I see so many parents and so many preschools offering programs for a 10-month child, 1 year old child, 1.5 year old child. That's the time that a child needs to experience that freedom, and and a lot is happening at that time, because the child is observing, processing things, touching and exploring various things. So in that age group, I would just suggest, do a lot of outings with your child, play games, play different things with your child, play hide and seek, play innovate things, innovate pretend play games, and just have fun with your child. And that is important, because then, in the primary, when the child is ready to learn reading, writing, the child will be with you, and you will not see the problems. I saw there were questions around, my child doesn't want to sit, he doesn't want to do what I have planned for him. There are questions like these also. I got a couple of questions on my messenger yesterday, saying my child doesn't learn with me. He So there are so many things that you need to think about and reflect when you say that my child doesn't want to learn with me. What is it? And you need to keep your ego away, because ego is something, that spoils everything. Be open minded, be open to learning, observe, and listen to what your child is trying to convey to you, what your child is trying to express with you. That is very important. You will know your answers as to why your child doesn't want to do activities that are planned by you, or that you expect him or her to do. So on that note, it's an hour now, so I would like to end my session, and let's do more of these. I think next Thursday I could do a session on I on the role of a facilitator, and so the learner and the facilitator, their relationship, connection, and how can one enhance that in a homeschooling, through a homeschooling curriculum. So we could talk more about that. Next Wednesday, we are going to have a guest who will talk to us about the Waldorf method. We will bring in different experts who will talk about different learning approaches, different learning pedagogies, different uh, you know uh, uh, different ways of learning, and that will also help you guys create your own curriculums and how you implement it, and decide on how you implement it. So on that note, thank you very much for patiently listening to me. I hate doing such sessions because it's only me talking. um, but yes, so workshop method is also good, so we could also plan a workshop along with everybody. Okay. Thank you so much. With that, I end my broadcast.